Thank you so much for continuing to tune in and watch this series. I'm just so excited to have you here. If you're new to me or to the series, I'm Vita King Blanchard, and this is Actualizing Your Authentic Self. Um, Tonight, my guest is Phillip Weber, who is usually moderating the chat, but he's on here. Philip, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's great to be in the chat all the time. But I am super excited to join you up here and talk about authentic self. And I love the questions I've seen already, so I'm excited when we get to that. I am a entrepreneur at this point. Most recently, I started my own business in the last 3 months called Skydancer Media to support artisans, makers, people who have family-sized or smaller businesses and need to get in touch with their online community. And we focus on generally building a Patreon or some kind of crowdsourcing like Ko-Fi or Buy Me a Coffee for people, whatever suits their scale and energy, and like bringing it online with a way to support the community that you need to build around that. So a lot of these people, like my parents, who were both potters their whole lives, um, are not super technically inclined when you've got a lifelong career skill that you have built and it's not technical, like digital, then a lot of people hesitate to jump in. So, as with our tech background, like that's what we do now. In the past, I have worked in a oh my, like it was a medium-sized tech company, 500 plus people as an agile coach and organizational wellness expert. And that was 15 years in tech doing that and testing software. And that's a lot of my background. That's enough.
Yeah, well, and that's great. And just for anyone who doesn't know, I think an agile coach is organizational wellness, is how I think about it. Making sure that that the organization that you're a part of is well functioning holistically and actualizing its authentic self.
I agree, and I love because I can get sincerely behind the methods. And in short, I'll say the best explanation of why it's called agile is because it's about nurturing the processes that let you get out of the way of a problem you can see coming.
Yeah.
Like how to dodge a ball. You would need to be agile, right? But you'd have to see the ball coming or there's no dodging.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and always and being a
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Vita. I'm stoked.
yeah. And tonight, Susie is moderating the chat for us. And Susie is a trauma informed uh, astrology and tarot reader, and she is wonderful. And she actually has been with us before too. When the night that Philip couldn't make it because of a storm issue.
Oh, it was flooding.
Yeah.
Just a tiny,
It was a tiny flooding.
just a tiny bit of flooding, and I was the only one here.
Mhm. Mm. But thank you so much, Susie, for being here with us and being in the chat.
Yes.
Tonight we will. Oh, I'm going to breathe us into the. I, thanks, Susie. I appreciate that support. But yeah, so I'm going to breathe us into the container. That's what I'm going to do first. So go ahead and settle into the position that feels comfortable for you right now. And if it feels comfortable to close your eyes, you can do that, knowing that you can open them at any moment again if you need to. And gently just follow your breath, allowing it to move in its natural rhythm, in and out. In this space, just noticing your inner space. Acknowledging anything in your system that would like your attention. And then returning your attention to your breath. And when you're ready, open your eyes and rejoin the space. Tonight we'll be chatting about some questions that we've agreed to bring to the table. And please feel welcome to share questions and comments, whether you're here with us live or you're watching it later. I love to see them, and it just, yeah.
Yeah.
So, our first question is, what is a sustainable community?
Yeah, low pressure, huh? I thought when I saw this question, I was like, wow. I was like, Vita's really just like throwing me into the deepest end. What is sustainable community? But I've got some thoughts. However, first, I wanted to say ask if you or anyone in the chat has an example of a sustainable organization that they're aware of. And I'll ramble a little bit to give people time to come up with something because it's not an easy question, as we've pointed out, but I have serious thoughts.
Can I answer this one?
Yeah, please, if you got it.
I know a lot of communities that practice being
Mm-hmm.
sustainable and practice sustainability in different ways, right? I know restaurants that practice sustainable sourcing, sustainable like carry out containers, sustainable electricity
Mm-hmm.
practices.
Mm-hmm.
I know land preservation organizations that practice having a community that's self-feeding,
Mm-hmm.
and people working together and being a whole. And like any practice, I don't know anyone who's doing any practice perfectly, including this one.
Absolutely.
And so like I love to say, when we are practicing something, it's like riding a bike and we have to expect that we're gonna fall, right? That's
Absolutely.
part of the process.
And I will warn anyone, if you're doing something for the first time, you're going to be bad at it. At least compared to how good you would be the 100th time, right? So, and it's always the hardest lift is the first.
Yeah, there's a phrase that I love called practice makes progress.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
In my I went to a Western martial arts training camp where we made foam swords and attacked each other. And they taught that slow is smooth, smooth
Mhm.
is fast.
Mhm.
And I really enjoyed that because it means that practicing good form slowly at first builds correct speed rather than just flailing ahead, which is very common. And this is, I would say, one of the least sustainable parts of community is where it blindly flails ahead.
Mhm.
I, when I was thinking about sustainable community, so I think you are tapping into the sustainable idea, right? And that's super important because sustainable to me is a kind of balance for a system. And like you were saying, there are subsystems I think of in communities and restaurants like the trash or the electricity that can be made more sustainable.
Mhm.
And a sustainable community then would not just it would last. It wouldn't come to an end prematurely. And it would thrive. That's it would go on and thrive. When I think about how I think of organizations and organisms very similarly. My body's made up of a lot of complex systems, and my cells don't know what the hell's going on. But all together, like we make it happen. And I think a shared goal is super important. and you have to be able to communicate it. So my first thought was like it has to have a vision that other people can tap into. And so that's why leadership is important in a community somewhere. Um, I think what sustainable community really needs to forge forward, where I had three mindsets that came to mind, because I'm not going to share just one. But I think you have to have a vision, and I think that vision has to be powered by an abundance mindset. And to me, abundance mindset I learned in the trickiest part of relationship experience for myself when I was deep in polyamorous community for many years and had to do a lot of self-work. And it's the kind of opposite of scarcity mindset. Abundance to me says there's plenty for everyone, and I don't have to be afraid that I won't be able to get what I need. And I think for an organization that's going to house people in it as its cells,
Hmm.
you really need it to have a positive community impact because organizations are not as humane as individual humans. So that's my first thought.
Well, they're as humane as we make them, right?
Exactly. I think you have to intentionally make organizations humane because they tend towards kind of being their own kind of system, right? To me, the corporate embodies the kind of oops, organizations can be psychopathic because they always involve money at some level, and the money I feel pulls organizations in dire places.
I guess I like I want to
Yeah, tell me, what do you
I
think?
it's like I it, it's I if you live in a place where you're surrounded by people who are hateful,
Mm,
and it's easy to believe that all people are hateful, right? And
hmm.
so, but if you live in a place where people are loving and kind and supportive and lift each other up, then it's easy to believe that all people are like that.
Mm.
So just because we have only seen organizations that, or like that we've seen a lot of corruption in organizations,
Yes.
or political organizations, right? Doesn't mean that that's the only option. It doesn't mean it's the
No,
only way for it to be. And
certainly.
and so I don't want to say that that is an organizational tendency. I want to say
Mm.
that that is a product of not practicing a new way enough. And and I do just want to call out that Susie did respond to your question. And she
Mm.
said, while it's not a business organization, I'm doing my best to move us into a no waste, sustainable household. It's a process, but it feels incredibly good, and you can't imagine going back.
Oh, yeah. So, one of the best things about sustainability is that it feels good.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, you're right. So, this is not a inescapable path. It is absolutely possible to make more humane organizations than we see abroad. And there's actually some nice moves going on, like limited profit corporations and stuff, new kinds of like ways of incorporating. I don't know that much about them, but I've been reading
Yeah.
because I had to start my own business. So, let me go to, you need the growth mindset as well. And this is an infinite growth. That's bullshit, to pardon my French. Um, there's no infinite in like material growth. I don't believe there's limits and boundaries.
Mm.
Uh, I think for me, the growth mindset is basically lifelong learning mixed with an understanding that there's always more to know about yourself. And as an organization, you want to learn more about the organization. You want to let the organization itself learn by building better rules and like basically reflection on how things have gone and how you'd like them to be. Oh, I see something in chat. Authentically
Authenticity too is so important, I think.
not performative sustainability.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the last bit, and I think this actually lines up well with our authenticness, is I really believe in strength-based nurturing.
Mhm.
So, with abundance, your organization is looking to make a positive benefit for its community as well, because it knows that there's an infinite amount of benefit that can be generated from a system, right? You can tie in, you can always learn to be better, and like you can send your food scraps to the homeless. Like you can, like everything can move up and be a little more positively balanced with its environment outside. With the growth mindset, you know that you can become a better you in the future on the inside. And I think the strength based nurturing is focusing on what you can do well and letting the flaws and the things that are less possible, like letting those not consume your energy as much. In an organization, it can be very you kind of have to decide what you're strong at because it's full of people who are strong at lots of different stuff. And you really want to pull the people's strengths and the organization's strengths in line, ideally, and have them working towards that one goal. So you get so much power going in the right direction. And I think generally that's what makes something sustainable. Now, you're going to have people coming in and people going out. So it has to be able to change over time and flex and teach new people and let go of old skills and strengths because maybe they don't have that anymore. Or maybe you found something new in your environment and you have to adapt to. But that is sustainable community in my mind.
I love that. I mean, I wonder why, I mean, if it's always growing, then isn't that infinite growth?
So it's also shrinking. So
Because you're clarifying. But
yeah,
but infinity doesn't have to be in infinite directions.
sure, it can be denser. You're becoming, yeah,
My
and
my brain
that
is totally in abstract algebra, like infinity groupings right now. You know,
I'm
like
seeing spirals, and it's like, did you start on the outside of the spiral and draw in, or the inside of the spiral and draw out? Sorry, not to get weird,
no,
but
no, but I think
no.
that's really descriptive because it can
So
be like infinity can be it can be in multi directions. You can have multiple expanses, but you can also just have like something can be infinitely small as well as infinitely large, right?
yes, yes. So it's like similar to a human's experience, I would say. An organization is not going to last forever. A human being will not last forever, but over time, you can grow into a shape that suits who you want to be and your potential.
So
And yeah,
so can we say infinitely refining?
absolutely. Like, because it's lifelong learning. Now, I'll tell you the
Yeah.
phrase they teach you in Scrum Master training, which is the level underneath Agile Coach, is relentless improvement, right?
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. And I see in the chat, Susie says shedding allows more growth, aligning as we evolve. And so that's critical is our teachings are often do less. We want you to achieve, the 80/20 rule. Like if you can get 80% done for 20% of the effort, don't do the rest. And you don't have to. Smaller batch sizes, little tasks, like that makes for sustainable activity is when people try and do a big thing, they can do one big thing heroically once, maybe twice. And if they have to do it three times, they're going to burn out. And if they have to do it for a whole year or 5 or 10, they don't want to work there. It's not sustainable. No one can handle heroism their whole life long. And you to get back to shrinking, I would say, is you have to make space for new practices, And while you can learn and refine more deeply, you really want to make it poetic and co condense it down to simple, true, ways of passing that knowledge to the next people to
Mhm.
inherit your corporation or your organization. Um, I see someone identifies with relentless
Yeah.
improvement, which I do too.
Well, so so once we're in this organization and we're in
Hmm.
this growth mindset, I'm shifting us onto the second question.
Yeah, bring it, bring
How
it.
can we create positive impact in our own communities? Because, right, every community is its own organization, its own holistic whole that we hopefully are supporting and being
Absolutely.
supported by, right? Hopefully there's
Yeah.
mutual exchange going on.
You inextricably webbed into,
That's right.
right? Like
Yeah,
whether you know, whether that's what you were hoping for or not. Yeah, I remember it took me a while to identify that my work colleagues I was in community with them. Like that was not my first thought when I got into the workforce.
sure.
Um,
But
but
that's part of like the shift to create the supportive organization, right? Is like, we're taught to compete against each other, but in abundance mindset, like part of that as a metaphysical person is like competition is not real, right? We are all doing the best we can, and when we all do the best we can, we all thrive.
yes. Yeah, no, and there's it's that's it's too niche. I have something, but I agree. It's so important to allow people to have a positive impact that suits them because when people are really going to have a positive impact, it's going to be authentically from them.
Mhm.
Someone who's trying to force a positive impact does not actually have a positive impact in my experience most of the time. It's you can the the most sustainable positivity comes from people's internal motivation. And so you need to tap into that if you really want to have a positive change. And actually, this is where I have a book that I could suggest. It's called Switch: How to Change When Change is Hard.
And Susie,
And
if you could drop that in the chat for us, that would be great. It's in the run of show, so people
yes,
can find it in the chat. Yeah.
yeah, so we'll get that into the chat. I don't know the authors. I read their book. It was fantastic. I thought very actionable. Um, what they pointed to, my favorite one, and I'm going to tell you the story from the book. There was a Doctors Without Borders doctor, I believe, who got sent to Vietnam. And they were like, here's a village where there's a lot of malnutrition in the children. Like, change something. And it was like him and a student or assistant that went with him. And that's all they had. No supplies, no nothing, no money. No one came. And they looked around and they saw the bright spots. They're like, okay, wait, some of these kids don't seem, their parents under the exact same conditions seem to have healthier kids. What's going on? And they found that these mothers would capture tiny crustaceans in the fields while they were out planting in the normal workday, and they would feed those to their kids. As a matter of fact, they found like greenery growing around the village, and so they supplemented with what was locally available and fed them smaller meals more often with this kind of like foraging. And it turns out, thank you for sharing the book, Susie. Um, it turns out that that was available to everyone. They just didn't know it. And so they cloned the bright spot. And when you find something already organically working in your organization, the safest bet is to try and clone it in a similar circumstance. And it's already organically present in that environment. So you don't have to worry about the kind of like rejection issues that are incredibly common when you try and force your idea of positive change on a community that you don't understand as much as they would like you to understand. So my best suggestion, and you'll have a positive change, is look for where it's already going the way you want it to and see how you could expand that, or if it's just a matter of knowledge, accessibility that could be shifted.
Yeah, I love that.
Me too. It really works. And so the book makes these steps easy. I took a picture of the table of contents and made that my phone background for 6 years. And like it's it's effective.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of brings us into our third question, right? How can
Shoot.
we recognize the opportunities we have to realize our potential or our organizational or our organization's potential or community's potential?
Ah, now this one. Okay. This is look, okay. You want this is the core of growth mindset. Relentless self-improvement, relentless organizational improvement.
Hmm.
Now, relentless has to fold in the face of human need,
Yeah,
right? We say relentless, that means we don't give up. It does not mean we drive the humans into the ground.
I love that.
Oh yeah, this in working in a corporate environment as the person who says we're not going to kill you guys, we're going to let you create your own work schedule as long as it lines up with the visions and stuff. Like I had to balance like here's what the company's going to achieve and it's like here's what this team can actually do. And when those don't line up, I err on the side of the team, right? We can't make people 1,000 times more productive than they should be. And if you try, it all falls apart. So, that noted, I think reflection, this show in particular, is a great example of the kinds of practices that allow you to identify what it is you have to offer. And I think reflection, we call them retrospectives. In the military, they're debriefs. There's in hospitals, they're called, it's kind of scary, like post-mortems. Um, and you can do a pre-mortem. So, hot tip, you can say to yourself, in 6 months, how do I believe this plan is most likely to fall apart before you even do the plan? And if you have a room full of people try that who know what they're talking about and have experienced a plan, you can get great answers in advance. But if you really want to teach yourself to be better, you have to look at the moments where it was hard, where you ran into resistance inside yourself, inside the group, where you didn't expect it and it was shocking. All of these, oh no, moments where you're like, things aren't working great. That is your opportunity to improve. That's a target for improvement. And reflection with other people helps you prioritize because none of the negativity is invalid, is how I take it, right? You can say, oh, that's uncomfortable. Oh, I don't like this. I don't want to talk about that at all. But if you're not sharing your perspective with others, you can't have an impact within an organization.
Hmm.
And the one rule I had with all of my teams, and there's literally only the one hard rule, was no hidden problems. We can't do anything about what you don't tell us about, and we don't fail alone, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If anything fails, it's because the team failed, and so we emphasize that it's a team. You're part of a team. The team functions as a group. We don't judge individual members. We let the team's ability to function speak for itself, and we find ways to show that to whoever's leading and to show it to ourselves so that we can stand behind what we're saying. And then when you know that you were lined up properly and you gave it your best effort and everyone did what they could do and that the team functioned the way it should, because not everyone could do everything, so you need multiple people often, then you can say, yeah, sorry we failed. I don't feel bad about it. And boom, you have been authentically, that team has sincerely expressed itself. And that's the kind of corporate environment that I was brought in to make. And instead of one where people take orders and lose alone because whatever, the rules can't be changed or challenged. And so I think reflection.
And taking ownership, right?
Yes.
That's the wording that I would use for that. Is
Yeah. And people need to buy into the plan. The
Mhm.
biggest struggle was always, well, this idea is stupid and I'm not going to do it. So if you don't take time to reflect on what people have issues with and let them say it, be heard, let the team accept that feedback, and then go, but we have to try anyway, then people are bought in, right? They got to note it. They said it. You heard it. Someone wrote it down in the notes, in the meeting notes, like, and the boss said, oh, yeah, we really can't do that. Like when someone says, yo, you're right, to the guy on the line who pulls the line and says, no, we have to stop right here. Like,
Mhm.
oops, sorry, but this piece has to be redone. Like, no one wants to hear that, but someone has to say it.
Mhm.
So it's, people have to be unafraid and the transparency has to be respected through the whole environment. But if you just take time to reflect on how things have gone, the outcomes that you wanted and the outcomes you got, you'll find yourself developing your strengths.
I find that there is like a magic in finding ways to say yes, like
Yes.
stretching to say yes, so that when there has to be a no or not right now, that everybody really does feel heard. Like to just support that, right? We say yes so much, and and I think that that's an important part of that.
Absolutely. And I keep pointing with my pen. Some of the feedback I got was that maybe pointing with my pen looked really aggressive to people on remote. So sorry, anybody, bad habits. But uh, I think when you let someone else's momentum carry you, you get a
Hmm.
free ride.
Hmm.
So even if someone startles me and they're I rarely say no. I say yes whenever I can, partly because it builds a great relationship over time.
Hmm.
I read a book about negotiating from Yale that was quite short, and it basically said, and I've told many people this who are stuck. I was like, people have a position that they stake out for you, usually like a sentence or something when they disagree with you. Or when you're trying to negotiate, you're like, uh-oh, they've got a position. They're like, no more blank. Positions, they've got smaller reasons behind them. That's like their summary. They're like, you know what? No more air. And you're like, whoa, that's intense. Why? And they're like, I hate how pollen gets into my house. And you're like, oh, okay, not the same thing, right? But what I heard was really triggering. And what you meant or like are trying to avoid is actually plausible.
Hmm.
So many negotiations are like this, where only if the things you want are directly opposed. Like, I'm gonna kill you, I don't want to die. But if it's like, well, I need money and there's some in your wallet, like, there's room to negotiate, right? You can find ways to solve the problem that might be agreeable for everybody. And sorry about that example, not my favorite example, but um,
No, but it's a good example of diametric opposition. Like
yeah.
if things, but even so, I've someone once
I,
said to me, they're like, there has to be a third option, right? So we find the option where people's needs are met, and then asking curious questions about, like, okay, what is it that you really need? Because as you said, not like what people share is not necessarily what they're actually looking for, is not actually what they actually need. So, and part of that is that our language falls short. When I'm
ooh,
describing something to you, what you hear is not is often not what I mean, right? Like
oh yeah.
we're filtering through our own perspectives. I think I'm sharing my ideas, my feelings, my content, and and you think you're receiving it, and we're both making as much effort as possible, and yet your experience and my experience, we're just two different worlds trying to communicate together.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone has their own language,
Mm-hmm.
their internal way they say things to themselves. I say gotta. When I say gotta, that's like straight from my subconscious. Like I can't resist this urge to go play video games. I gotta play video games. Or like I gotta eat something, right? And when I say that, it's like, whoa, different than the brain. But it's also not how other people say that to themselves. They'll be like, I'm hungry. And I'd be like, I gotta eat. Or um, and when you say things out loud, it's not the way your heart hears things.
Right.
And it takes time for any message to sink in. The rule of thumb is you have to broadcast something 7 times if you want someone to really believe it. Now, in more organizations with a bit more deeper heart than the one I lived in, I can you can do it much faster if people are well aligned. But you have to sleep on something to truly learn it, is my take. I think that when you sleep is when your brain locks in what it has. Like it's got short-term holding, and when you sleep much of that converts into longer term, I think.
I
It
think
is my
sleep, I think sleep is a great place for that, and so is meditation.
absolutely.
So are mindfulness practices, but it's that, right? It's that pause, it's that space where we give ourselves rest and restoration. And actually, I think that that leads us into the practice that you were going to share.
Yes, and I see in the chat, Susie, that you've been experiencing very profoundly the oh, it slipped my mind. Where is going?
The rest and restoration,
Yes, the rest
being
and recuperate.
refilled.
Yeah, my brother actually called me up. He's like, I'm so mad. He's like, my housemate took the car without asking, and he hasn't got his driver's license yet. And I was like, ooh. And I was like, have you slept yet? And he was like, no. And I was like, don't sleep on it first. And
Yeah.
he was like, that was such good advice.
Yeah.
So the beast must be fed. Yeah, really important. So here is the practice I wanted to share, and it's kind of like the other side to the coin to when you breathed us into the room and in my mind. Um, this one is specifically tuned for my brain. And to give you some context about my brain, I'm pretty ADHD. My dad is extremely ADHD. Um, and I get really twisted up and focused. I have an easy time hyper focusing on stuff, but it often causes me a lot of stress. And that accumulates in my neck and all this stuff because I'm often talking on video cameras and stuff when it's happening and my phone. And recently we bought a property from my parents, and if we didn't buy it, they were going to get evicted from it. And so it was like paralyzing. So, in the face of stresses that are seemingly larger than us, I fall back on trying to break that idea and to take myself to a place of what I call unspeakable relief. And to me, the core of this is like noting what is happening inside yourself and releasing the hold on you that past commitments in your mind or even passing casual thoughts that you meant to do, just letting go of things that are still holding on to you and finding a relief that goes beyond words. Like I call it unspeakable because I believe that words are profoundly limiting and that there's so much more potential in your biology, in your mentality, and in your frame of mind that can be tapped into if you can accept that there's more goodness there than can be said and invite that into yourself. So, um, here's how I do it for myself. One, I like to lie down and close my eyes. I tried meditating in sitting positions, but my body drives me mad. And it works so much, I like to sleep in my comfy bed or on the couch and like lie down. I also need that sensory deprivation sometimes. And the goal is to get myself to a point where I kind of forget where I'm at for just a second. And when I can wake back up into the day after practicing just settling into my body, as Vita said. And I guess all right, I'm just gonna go for it. Here we go. We're gonna actually do it instead of just meta talk about it.
Awesome.
I heard you telling me to go. Okay, so I'm gonna find a comfortable position for yourself where you feel like you're going to be able to rest your outside and find the feelings inside. Not necessarily emotions. Any feeling, any sensation is totally acceptable. To me, I like to start by relaxing the muscles around my eyes. Um, and I can tell that I'm ready to look inward when my eyes aren't ready to look outward anymore. And I can't get that way in front of a screen. So, relaxed as much as you can. I want you to imagine a moment in time where you felt profound relief. Something so notable that you still remember it today. And try and draw that memory, that experience around yourself. And without putting words into your mind or calming the words that are already in your mind and letting them pass and not focusing on that, try to let the unspeakable relief from that moment seep into you. For me, I imagine laying out in the sunshine and feeling like that warmth on your skin, and I don't need to see the sun. It's just around me and sinking in. And when you're in this state, and I know this is difficult to do without thinking words, it's fine. The point is to focus primarily on the sensation. I forgive myself of all quests, of previous tasks and commands that I've given myself that I may remember, that I may not remember. And I say, you know what? We're good. This is plenty. I can afford to let go. I can release all that. I can forgive myself for not doing it. And those aren't my burdens anymore. And for as long as you need, let those things go until you find a moment where nothing comes to mind. And that's when I would wake up, come back. You can slowly reel yourself in, I would say. That's probably enough for now. But I hope that gives you the tip of the iceberg, right? Just a taste of what you could do with that kind of focus. And just to remind you, I think the core part is being open to incredible relief and forgiveness, no matter what, for yourself. And I think we all owe it to ourselves to wipe the slate clean every now and do it as often as you need.
Yeah, I love that.
Was that too long? It felt like forever.
No, that's great. That's great. Uh, so, I mean, it's a practice of being, and so I'll just invite everybody. Thank you for sharing that practice. I
Yeah.
went really deep into it, so I'm
I saw.
trying to
I was like, I had my eyes closed, so when I opened them and I saw you were like gone, I was like, I was come back slowly.
because I love meditating, and it's just another
Me
practice, right?
too.
Yeah.
That when you breathe people in, I'm always like sleeping like a baby in chat. Susie, you probably experienced this.
Yeah, and she just said no, not too long at all.
Good, good.
Um, yeah. So I'll just invite everybody, like after participating in that, to just take a breath and notice. Notice how you feel right now after this conversation, after that meditation. Just notice. And then return your attention back to your breath, back to the room. Right? Like meditative practices can be as long or as short as we want them to be, and meditation, yoga, right? It's all just a practice of being. Like practicing being present and allowing our mind, body, and spirit to be, to exist, and without judgment. And again, practice makes progress, right? Gentle is
Absolutely.
sustainable. I'll just keep throwing out
The
phrases,
only way.
bumper
Everything's a
stickers.
skill. Everything's a skill. That's my
Yeah.
favorite.
Yeah, that's great. So thank you, Philip, for being here with me.
My
Uh,
pleasure.
Thank you, Susie, for moderating the chat. I'm grateful to everybody who tuned in or is tuning in later. I really appreciate all of you. And for now, I'm going to sign us off. I love me. I love you. I love us. And I will see you soon.
Love you, Vita.
Love you.